Versa best company.
Versa Business System.
It's a better
Versa Business System.
Versa Business System.
Welcome to the Versa Business Tips Podcast. I'm your host, founder and CEO of Versa Business Systems, Shaheen Mazloom. We are here with a serial entrepreneur today and expertise when it comes to growing and scaling businesses. Courtney De Ronde, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Shaheen.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today. So for those out there that don't know who you are and what your business does, tell us a little bit about you and Forge and what you guys do.
Yeah, so we really are focused on helping small business owners and nonprofit leaders to scale themselves and their organizations.
I love
So
that.
really both are necessary. I have found from personal experience and from working with clients that in order to grow and scale your business, you're going to have
You
to
gotta
be
grow,
growing and scaling yourself
Yeah,
at a
100%.
faster pace, or you're going to be the ceiling. And so
Absolutely.
on the financial side of Forge, we're providing outsourced accounting, virtual CFO, controller, bookkeeping services, tax consulting, as well as we have an audit practice that does external reporting for those who need audited financials.
Right.
And then on the management consulting side, I am providing management consulting to help solve those challenges and problems of scale through a couple of different things. One primarily is a group business coaching and leadership development program called Scaling Leader. I facilitate a cohort in person every quarter. And then I also do a limited number of private consulting days and one-on-one executive coaching, just that's more limited.
Very cool. So when it comes to, helping these small businesses scale, what are you finding are the things that are holding them back, right? Like we all know that 95% of businesses fail in the first year. But what are, the businesses that are, they're making some moves, they're making some money, they're going to go, it's looking like they're going to make it, right? So when it comes time to scale, what are you seeing that's kind of holding people back?
Yeah. What I see most is that people are missing the shift from what it's like to think and function like a startup versus what it requires to think and function like a scale up. There's a difference. There's different questions you ask. There's different ways that you function.
Yeah.
And sometimes established businesses make it well past startup and realize they're still thinking and functioning like they did in scale up. So that's one of the biggest things. The second thing I would say, because my background, I am a CPA and I started out in that side of the of the business. The other thing I see, those stats reflect on small business failure, that a lot of times it results from poor financial management.
Yeah.
So what we also see, especially on the financial consulting side of our practice, is as businesses grow and scale, they can't keep all those numbers in their head anymore, and they're not at the center of everything going on. So they can't rely on their gut anymore.
Yeah.
They need visibility on reliable information to start feeding insights into their decision making.
Absolutely.
And so those are really the two biggest shifts that I see that kind of trip people up, but they're so common. It doesn't, and sometimes people think because they get tripped up, they're just not made for this,
right?
And they give up. But really, it happens to
you
everyone.
Figure it out. Like you've got two choices. You either give up or you figure it out. You know what I mean? Like I don't think any of us actually knew, exactly what we were doing. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. Like you're never gonna know it all. forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I love what you said earlier with, you've got to grow personally along with your business. And there's nothing truer ever. Like, I mean, we've interviewed so many people. I talk to business owners all day, every day, and nobody's said that. But it's so true, right? Like, when you think about scaling as a company, if you aren't growing, you've got to grow your mindset, your way of thinking, your financial abilities, your sales abilities, your leadership skills, your all those things have to grow with the business. Otherwise, like you said, you become the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. A lot of the times, I think, especially business owners, they let their ego get in the way sometimes, right? Like, they're not going to trainings and seminars, and they're not reading books anymore, and they're not growing themselves, because they've got this business that's working. But when it comes to a point where you become the ceiling, you've got to grow, you've got to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring up a great point there. I love learning, and I love business. So I've always been that, like, that's how we've scaled. I go
Mm-hmm.
learn something to help us scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
But most business owners don't do that. Why do you think that is?
I think that there's kind of this belief that if I've been successful to this point, trusting my gut, that I can continue to be successful trusting my gut. And so
Interesting.
I think the fact that it worked at first,
Right.
that I find this true also in overwork, or like, it works for a while, working longer and harder than everybody else.
Right.
You can be successful for a while. It's just
Yeah.
not sustainable. And so
Yeah.
I think that's why it's like, well, that worked. So if I just keep doing it, I have good instincts. I can trust my
Right.
gut. I've done it before. But here's the thing about trusting your gut. Your gut is based on your emotions,
Yeah.
which are fickle, and your
Mm-hmm.
experiences, which are limited.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to do something you've already done or go somewhere you've already been, you should absolutely trust your gut.
Yeah.
If you're trying to go somewhere you've never been before, you
Exactly.
need information and
100%.
insights.
Yeah.
You need a map or a guide or
Yeah.
both in order to get there. And that is core to that shift
Yeah.
from thinking and functioning like a startup to thinking and functioning like a scale up. And I think that's at the core of
Absolutely.
why
Yeah,
we
no,
hold
that
ourselves
makes
back.
perfect sense. So, would you say technology is probably the most important piece of that data and those numbers and that information of their company, is having the right technology to be able to track all the different things that they need to be tracking?
And not necessarily just technology. I would say it's having a system that feeds you intelligence. So essentially what I created for our management consulting practice is a business intelligence and leadership development framework, a
Interesting.
system of tools and
Mm-hmm.
principles. So it's like this balance of changing the way we think
Mm-hmm.
and implementing different ways of doing things, but all throughout the system, which is called the simple scale up system, all
Mm-hmm.
throughout this, we're focused on 4 areas of intelligence. So it's financial, leadership, productivity, and human intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and having systems in place that feed us information and insights so that we can take action and rely on the information, look at the information. So reliability, visibility,
Right.
predictability, figure out where we think we're going to go, and then flexibility, where we're pivoting our plans when things don't go the way we thought. So it's a mix of, some of it's technology, some of it's
Right.
from having a regular cadence of checking in with your people,
Right.
some of it is from the way that you spend your own time as the leader, what things you're involved in, what things you're hands off on. So
Right.
it's really a comprehensive system that some technology makes it more efficient and automated. But
Yeah.
if you don't already have a system, a technology
Right.
in and of itself probably won't solve your
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, no, that makes sense. So you've got to have those SOPs in place, like you said, those weekly or monthly or whatever check-ins, because you get to a point where you can't have your thumb on every single part of the
Mm-hmm.
business. Um, Otherwise you're not scaling, right? Like it's
Right.
just, let's be honest. If you can have your thumb on every part of the business, it's a very small
Mm-hmm.
business. So generally the types of businesses that you're working with, what are you, is it generally like under a million in revenue, or is it like that, like they've reached a million and they
Mm-hmm.
can't seem to get to that next level? Generally at what point are businesses coming to your company for help?
Yeah, generally they're over a million.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really kind of focused on the size and stage. So they're established. They're not in startup mode. They know their
Yeah.
customer. They know their product. So they're established. Generally, if they're service based, they're generally in the 1 to 10 or 12 million. If they're
Mm-hmm.
product based, it could be even more significant revenue wise. But that doesn't always mean it all drops to the
Right.
bottom line. But yeah, so we serve small businesses. We also work with nonprofit organizations, so
Nice.
executive directors and leaders of nonprofit organizations who are established and they're trying to get to the next level. Sometimes it's also a mature business that's going through a reinvention.
Right.
Often that's connected to some kind of succession plan. So there's a new leader in place or a new
Yeah.
owner in place, and now they need to figure out
You're probably
who
seeing that
are
a
we and where are we
lot.
going.
Probably seeing that a lot more now than than before. We're seeing so much shift, with wealth, companies being sold and acquired, and it's pretty exciting. What we're seeing out there, in the business world, really largely since the election, people are moving and shaking and growing,
Mhm.
and it's really cool to see. So with with a business that gets to a point where they're like, okay, we need to figure out where to grow from here. What makes your company, like, why would they come to your company, Forge, versus somebody else? I mean, there's all kinds of consultants out there, right? Like, what should a company be looking for in a consultant to help them grow? Like, what should they be looking for? Is it somebody that is all over social media and has a bunch of great reviews and this, that, and the other, or like what? Because we're at a point where we need to start taking on outside counsel and consultants and things like that. But it's like, where do you start? There's so many people out there. There's so many
Mhm.
consultants and so many really good consultants, right? Like, what do you recommend people look for when trying to find the right consultant, and how do you guys differentiate yourselves from others?
Yeah, I think that it's important when you're looking for help to get clear about what it is that you want and what it is that you need. So,
Mm,
for example, with business coaching, are you looking for a community? Are you looking for a system or a curriculum? Are you looking for something that you can do yourself? So there's all kinds of things out there, and
right.
the pricing, of course, varies. Do you want to watch a video and kind of do it yourself, read
Right.
books? Do you want to be part of a group and build
Right.
community with other leaders and business owners? Do you want plug and play tools and systems? So I think that's one thing to think about. There's all
Hmm.
kinds of different approaches out there, and
Right.
I've used different ones at different stages of my own development. So right now, I am in 3 different masterminds. There's no curriculum, there's no system or tools, but I am learning and sharing with people who are at my level or above, people who have
Right.
been where I've been and going
Yeah.
where I'm going. Where in the past, I've been in settings that were more curriculum based, where I was
Yeah.
learning systems and tools.
Yep.
Now I've developed our own systems and tools, so I'm not
Yeah.
really looking for somebody else's. And so I think that's the
Exactly.
first
Yep.
thing, is just realizing what it is that you are looking for and what it is that you value. What stands out or what differentiates Forge, a couple of things. One, having both the financial and management consulting side of
Right.
things. There's a lot of really big firms out there that do that,
Yeah.
but there aren't a lot of firms who are focused on the small and
Yeah.
mid-size
Very true. Well,
organizations.
there's also a lot of companies that only focus on one area and not the other.
Hmm.
I have found that, and that's, I think it's important that, because both of those things really should be going hand in hand. And when you have two different companies guiding you on each one, it can get messy.
Yes, for sure. And how kind of our origin of adding the management consulting side that gets beyond finance into
Mm,
leadership, productivity, and people was that we realized the better we did our job on the finance side, giving visibility on reliable information, insights that help people predict and flex their plans, the better we were at doing that, we uncovered the story that the money tells about the business.
right.
And then the business owner is saying, okay, now I see the issue. What do I do?
Right.
And what do I do is really a management consulting
Yeah.
question. And
Yeah.
so that's why we added it. But you're right, having both um, definitely helps connect the dots of having someone who understands finance and leadership
Yeah.
and productivity and people, and is focused on the small and mid-sized business. That's definitely our kind of unique differentiators. Business intelligence is often viewed as a very complex big company concept,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so that's really how we try to show up and help small and mid-sized businesses as well as nonprofit leaders.
Very cool. Very cool. So, um, you know, there's uh there's not many companies that are focusing on every area of business that need, to scale a company. You can't just focus on the finances or the people or the leadership or whatever. They all need to be
Mhm.
working together in unison to scale, right? So how do you, when you point out the problems, um, are you generally then presenting different ways that they can solve those problems, and then they are deciding, okay, well, yeah, let's go this route? Or are you generally guiding them to, like, hey, this is your best bet. Let's do this. Or is it a little bit of
Mhm.
both depending on the
Yeah, it
situation?
depends on how we are engaged. And so if I'm doing private consulting or
Hmm.
one-on-one executive coaching, I'm definitely advising, guiding, equipping with tools
Right.
to their specific situation.
Right.
And if we're also their outside outsourced CFO, then there's an even stronger connection between those two things. But a lot of people are really exposed to our management consulting services through that group business coaching and leadership
Hmm.
development program called Scaling Leader, where we're meeting every quarter in person and you're developing
Very
community
cool.
with other people. But that is really a curriculum content driven,
Right.
um, over the course of 3 years they learn every tool and every principle in the simple scale up system. But
Right.
I've um, curated into quarterly in-person sessions
Very
what
cool.
we're going to focus on
Right.
this quarter.
And so
And
where's that held?
3 of the 4 quarters are just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in
Okay,
Franklin.
awesome.
And then the third quarter, the third quarter is the only one that the content repeats over 3 years. And that's because it's our strategic planning workshop. So
Mm,
every year you need to recalibrate your vision
yeah.
and decide what you're going to focus on
Oh,
next
yeah.
year. So that one is in Beaver Creek, Colorado, just west of
Nice.
Vail, in a more retreat like
Yeah.
setting, because
Yeah, I
that's
like that.
hard
Yeah.
work
Oh, yeah.
um, to get into vision and strategy. And so
Definitely.
every quarter we're trying to create an opportunity for leaders and business
Yep.
owners to step out of the whirlwind of
Yeah.
their day-to-day responsibilities and have the space and support of me and
100%.
my co-facilitator and the other
Yes.
people in the workshop, and if it can be in a beautiful place
Yeah.
with free of distractions, that
Yeah.
makes the experience even more
That's a great idea.
meaningful.
You made me think of, when I was sitting down to go over what I wanted to focus on, this year. And I think I ended up putting it off for, I had 3 days in mind. I'm like, I'm going to get it done within the next 3
Mhm.
days. And then, this would come up and that would come up and this would distract me and that would distract, it's like, it's great to remove yourself, right? Remove
Mhm.
yourself from the business, be surrounded with like-minded people. That's great. And so if people want to join that community, where do we
Mhm.
find that?
Yeah, scalingleader.com. So,
Scalingleader.com. Okay, great.
our main website is forgeahead.com.
Hmm.
You can get to Scaling Leader through there as well. But if you're really just looking for Scaling Leader, it's easier to remember and navigate just to scalingleader.com.
Yeah.
It's got all the information about our
Awesome. I'll make sure to
workshops.
put scalingleader.com and Forge Ahead links in the description here. Um, so it sounds like there's a lot of people that are involved in this community. It could be anywhere from 1 million to 50 million in annual revenue. Um, at what point is it time to graduate, I guess, so to speak,
Mhm.
from your consulting to then moving to either something bigger, or does it get to a point where you no longer need additional consulting? Does it ever get to that point?
Yeah, from my experience, I have always benefited from some level of coaching,
Right.
consulting, or mastermind or some
Yeah.
combination.
Yeah. I don't think you
But
ever get to a point where you can't.
I think it depends on how you're wired to. I'm one of
Right.
my top strengths is a learner. So I
Same.
do
Yeah.
love to
Yeah.
learn and I'm an innovator. So I love to change and
Yeah.
grow. And
Same.
somebody asked me about a year ago, do you think you would be where you are today if you hadn't had a coach? I said, well, I think I would eventually get there, but it would have taken me a lot longer.
Way longer.
It would have been a
Yeah.
lot more painful process. So
Oh yeah.
I think that question of do you ever kind of outgrow needing coaching or consulting? I think it depends on how patient you are to learn from your own mistakes
Yeah.
versus learning from a guide
Yeah.
who's been there before
Well,
or
see,
who
the
has
thing
helped
is, like,
others.
even with a coach, you're still gonna make mistakes.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing is, like, you could have the best coaches in the world and, be listening to the right things and reading the right books and, watching the right podcasts and whatever it may be. It doesn't mean you're not gonna make mistakes, right? It's, but you're gonna make less mistakes. They're
Hmm.
gonna be easier to fix. They're not going to be as big of mistakes, right? I know for sure that if I hadn't have gone to college for the years that I did, I didn't get a degree, but I went to learn because I'm the same way. I like learning. My
Hmm.
parents wanted me to have a degree. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go to college. They weren't too happy when they found out I dropped out 8 credits shy, but I learned what I needed to learn, right? And I think as entrepreneurs, we've got that most of the time, have that whatever it takes, right? Has
Hmm.
that whatever it takes attitude. And if you don't, you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur, right? Like, you need to be willing to do whatever it takes, because this is not for the faint-hearted, right? Like, you need to be willing to learn and mastermind and go, join these groups and speak to other people and get those coaches and those consultants. So, man, Courtney, it's been great talking to you today. Do you have anything that you want to add for our viewers and listeners today, or any kind of a gift other than obviously inviting them to your community?
Yeah, well, I'd love to connect on LinkedIn as well. You can find me at Courtney De Ronde on LinkedIn. But another thing, Shaheen, that we could link in your show notes is a link to our free business intelligence grader. So if you
Awesome.
want to self-assess where you're at on your journey to
Love
scaling
that.
yourself and your business,
Yeah.
it asks you questions in each of those 4 areas: finance, leadership, productivity, and human
Very cool.
intelligence. And then we'll give you information about where you could focus based on your results to
I
start
love that.
making
Where do we
progress.
find that?
So it is at
Uh-huh.
forgeahead.com. And then if you click into the business intelligence grader, so it's forgeahead.com and then / business intelligence grader. And that's where you'll find that free assessment. It just takes probably 10 minutes or so. and you
That is
can
awesome.
gain some more visibility for yourself on where you're at.
Yeah, very cool. Self-assessment is it's probably one of the hardest things to do, right? To like sit there in the mirror, okay, what do I need to work on? Like
Hmm.
as people we lie to ourselves often. So having something like that is huge. I'm going to do that as soon as we get off here. So, Courtney, I know you got to go to another meeting. I appreciate you hopping on with us, and I can't wait to talk again soon and see where you're at.
Sounds good. Thanks so
Thanks,
much,
hon.
Shaheen. Appreciate it.